Good morning, everyone. Today in our college information series, we are going to be talking about the importance of rigor, honors, AP, and concurrent enrollment. So thank you for joining us. And those of you that are watching the video, thank you for rewatching this, and we hope you join us next time. So we're going to start out with some true and false, and you can just answer in the chat the answer to these questions. All AG courses are rigorous. So put in true or false if you believe that all AG courses are rigorous. Yeah, we've got some falses coming in. Okay. Anybody else want to give an answer? Oh,
Sorry,
there we
I got
go.
ahead of you. I got
There
excited.
you go. That's okay. The answer is correct. All of you that answered were correct. False. So they are supposed to be technically, right? But they vary by vendor, by teacher, and by the content. And just so you know, the term AG does not dictate the quality of a course. So those of you that have taken different AG courses with us, with different vendors, hopefully you can attest to that. They are not necessarily all created equal. Okay, next one. A course needs to be A to G to be rigorous. So is this true or false? False again. Anybody else? False. Anybody else want to answer? Okay.
Ready for the big reveal?
Ready for the big reveal?
Here we
The answer
go.
is ta-da, false. So all of you were correct again. A non-AG course can be very rigorous. So learners on the A to G path should not be afraid to take courses that they are interested in, even if it's not A to G. So, and just real quick, the term A to G for us means it's a teacher-led class. So somebody with a credential teaching the class, grading the class, giving feedback and offering support. So that's really what's making the class A to G. Perfect. A rigorous course must have significant homework. So in order for it to be rigorous, you've just got to be cranking in the hours of work. True or false? Everybody's answering false, Laura.
I don't know. There seems to be a pattern here.
It does. Ah, yes, correct. False is the answer. The amount of homework is not a measure of rigor. So busy work does not mean rigorous. All right, a rigorous course should have more assignments, more reading, more writing. So again, this looks like busy work to me. Could be, maybe. I don't know. What do you all think? False? False? Anybody else? False. Y'all are catching on here real good. The number of assignments and hours of reading, writing does not measure the rigor. Again, going back to that, is it busy work or is it meaningful work? Okay.
Maybe I should create better questions. I think this is the last one.
I think this is the last one. Rigorous courses are only for learners going to selective or quote top colleges. So only if you're going to the top universities do you need rigorous courses. True or false? Okay, we've got some false answers. Anyone else? And of course, the answer was false because why would we make anything true here today? All learners should take rigorous courses, which not only prepare them for college, but careers and life, which is very true. Awesome. All right. So what is a rigorous course? So most importantly, rigor will look different for every learner, right? It just depends on your learning style and what you're interested in. I like this quote by Brian, I'm not even going to try, from Utopia. Rigor doesn't simply mean giving students more or harder work. It instead is the result of work that challenges students' thinking in new and interesting ways. So you can see it's definitely going to look different for everyone, and it doesn't mean more or more difficult. Okay. Here we go. Choose to challenge yourself. So, are we ready to take some healthy risks? Are we ready to try some honors classes? Maybe an AP class, maybe we're ready to take a community college class. So I would say start with the courses you find interesting. If you are getting A's in all of your classes, are you really being challenged? If you are, that's amazing. If you aren't, maybe let's look into one of these other options. Um, Always, work with your counselor if you have any questions about your rigor and if you're ready to jump into something a little bit more challenging for you in things that you're interested in. We always want to say take those healthy risks. All right, so the rigor of a secondary school record. At what level have your high school courses prepared you for college and really for anything that you plan on doing after high school? So the secondary school report is essentially your transcript. It is every class that you've taken during high school, all compiled in one report. The purpose of choosing challenging courses is not to help you get into college, but actually to help you once you're there, right? That's why we want to challenge ourselves in high school so that when we are in university, we are prepared for that level of learning that some of our classes in high school may not prepare you for that, but that's what your counselors are here for, and we'd love to help you find something that's going to be rigorous for you or your learner, if you're a parent here, to help you prepare for that next step.
I think I step in this one.
Okay, so I'm going to let Laura answer this age-old question, and I'll be honest, we get this all the time. Is it better to take easy classes and get A's? Is it better to take harder classes and get B's? Laura, take it
This
away.
this is that age-old question that we
It
hear
is.
consistently.
All
And it's interesting because what we're going to do is instead of me giving you the lecture about why this is a silly question. I'm going to actually show you some of the college's opinions about this based on the data that they give us. So the question always is, should I take something hard and maybe not be perfect? I personally always say take the risk, check it out, try it out, but we can actually take a look at colleges and what their opinions are. So one of the things that you see in front of you, and let me actually move this so I can see it as well. This is from the Common Data Set. And those of you who have watched these presentations know that I love the Common Data Set. It is a guide to colleges where the colleges have the opportunity to give you information so that you can compare apples to apples. And what we're seeing here is we're seeing a small section of this area where colleges tell you what they're looking for in an applicant. And you can see that we've got 8 of them here. And if you look below at the bottom, looks like Princeton's missing an N or it's moved down, but you can see we're looking at Princeton, NYU, MIT, BYU, Azusa Pacific, APU, OSU, that's Oregon State, UCLA, and USC. But you don't know which one's which. And so take a moment and look through. You can see we have got 3 sections here. The rigor of the secondary school record, that's the transcript, that's the choice, the class choice. Should I take classes that are harder or classes where I should get easier to get A's? The class rank, which by the way, we don't give a rank, but if we did, the school would or would not consider where you fall within the rank of the students, and the GPA, the actual final grade. So the real thing that we're looking at is that rigor versus the GPA. Which colleges, and drop this in the chat, which colleges do you think have rigor of secondary school record higher versus GPA, or which colleges are going to say you have to do it all well? And put it in the chat, drop it in the chat. Which one do you think is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or H? Any of them jump out at you? We're going to match them in a second, but drop it in the chat for me. Let me actually open the chat. Don't be shy. I know there's enough of you in here to give a guess of at least a couple of these. Especially look at A and how different it is from I'm thinking that's E. Looking at A and E, which ones do you think might be A? Which ones do you think might be E? Taking a look at H, varies different. What are your thoughts about the schools that are lying the bottom versus what you see in the chart? Anyone? No one's guessing. This is an interactive presentation. Okay, I think we got a vote that A is Azusa Pacific, the small faith-based school here. We've got E is Princeton or MIT. What else do you think? Just come up with some ideas. There's a lot of variation here. We have a vote for G being USC. We got a lot of those very important, very important. I think E and G are the same, so it's interchangeable. Okay, I got a direct one that says E and G is MIT and NYU. Yeah, it's really hard to tell. So remember, when I'm going to give this a click and the schools are going to shoot
Before
up.
we go, does anybody
Yeah.
have a guess for D? Because they're very just
Hmm.
academic, GPA only heavy. Anyone?
Yeah, they consider rigor, but they don't really consider it as important or very important. We have a vote for BYU.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting how different these are. You ready for oh, we have a vote for USC. Interesting. Okay, so remember, rigor of secondary school record are the students' choices all 4 years. And the academic GPA, is it better to get an A or a B in a hard or easy class? If they're all similar, the answer is both. Get that A in that rigorous class. If they're different, you can kind of see what's important to the college. Here we go. Any surprises? Drop in the chat if you have anything that's jumping out at you as surprisingly weird. Or are these not? Yes, we got to vote for a surprise with A, that MIT has important for rigor and academic GPA. Any other surprises? Or are we pretty much on target? It's interesting, like looking at C, which is USC, that rank doesn't matter where you fall within the class, but your rigor and your academics do matter. Let's take a closer look at MIT, because yes, that is a surprise, but the surprise is all relative. In order to make one thing more important, you have to make other things less important. What is the single most important thing for MIT? What matters most of all? Anyone want to take a guess? You can see it. It's right here on the screen. Yeah, your character and personal qualities. It really matters who you are. And then everything else is pretty similar. Your academic GPA and your rigor are equal. Test scores matter. Your essay matters. Your recommendation matters. What's interesting is that character and personal qualities is going to be pulled out of your recommendations, your essays, your activities, and things like that. So the application as a whole is vitally important. And all those things matter as much as your rigor and your academic GPA, but they're really looking at who you are. And that tells you something pretty significant about MIT, I think. Um, you know what, Heather, this is your pet peeve. I might say, do you want to jump in and talk about these required recommended units? Especially, I know you have
Yeah.
some opinions about math.
I do. I do have opinions. Thank you, Laura. So, when we're looking at college admissions requirements, um, there's some schools that only have recommended, like MIT here, it's recommended that you do 4 years of English, math, etc. And then some schools like NYU that have requirements and recommendations. So, as your school counselor and the other two would attest to this same thing, please always do what's recommended, not just what's required. You want to make your application look as strong as possible. So if it says we require 3 years of math, but 4 years is required, we're doing math for 4 years, right? So just always keep that in mind. We're not here to meet the minimum. We're here to max out and make ourselves look as best as possible as a candidate for the school that we're interested in.
And I can't help, but this comes up often and often, especially senior year. It's like, I've done everything I need to. Do I really need to do more? Well, these 4 years of math that you can see over here with BYU, and I know that, Heather, you specifically say you had this conversation about BYU with many of our learners. They don't want you to stop at your senior year. That 4 years of math is 4 years of math. And so Even ASU, Arizona State, pay attention to what they feel is important. Uh, it matters in your ability to be admitted. So this once again is from the common data set. And if you're wondering, if you're curious, this is open. You just look up the school name, common data set. Section C in the common data set is all about admission requirements, expectations, and things like that. It's a great tool. Okay, let's go ahead. I got to move all these things out of my way. And let's compare sort of a different, we're going to compare this differently. We're going to look at admission rates that are different. We have Loyola Marymount versus Stanford. And we can see that admission rates go back to that question, what is more important? The joke always is when people go to these selective colleges like a Stanford or another Ivy League or something that is much harder to get into, and they ask that question, the admission officer will tell you it's the most important to take the hardest classes possible and get an A. And that is going to be true for Stanford. You can see that very important section. The rigor of the secondary school record, your transcript, and your academic GPA are very important. There is no difference between them. But now, when we're looking at a place like LMU, they're saying that GPA is actually a little more important than the rigor of the secondary school record. They consider that one a little bit higher. It's still important, though. It's still important. But as you're answering that question, we can now go back to our favorite answer for everything. It depends. Duke, once again, looking at it's very important, both your rigor, your academic GPA. Take a look. We have the English that, you know what, it says 3 years of math. I don't believe them. Not for a admission rate of 6%. You have to be competitive. So while they may recommend that you have three, have four or five, because we're talking an admission rate of 6%. On the other hand, Southern Oregon is almost an open university. What's really interesting about schools like Southern Oregon, where they say your rigor is considered, but your academic GPA is what's most important. A lot of times there will be schools that have scholarships that are directly related to your GPA. And so in those particular cases, sometimes the answer to that question is your GPA may become more important than your transcript. Whereas with a place like Duke, they're of equal importance. You can't skimp on either one. I do want to warn you, though, when you look at a place like Southern Oregon University, and you see that rigor is considered, so maybe maybe I won't worry about that honors class or that AP or community college class. I take you back to the slide earlier that reminds you that the reason that you are taking rigorous classes is also so that you are prepared, so that you have the ability to succeed once you get there. And so while the admissions aspect, where the rigor of secondary school record at Southern Oregon may not be as important as the GPA, your ability to succeed is. So it's still under consideration. We got one more here, Harvard. Harvard is an interesting one because I don't believe for a second that it's just plain old considered. You're allowed to put whatever you want in that common data set. And I think with Harvard, everything was just considered. Like everything is considered equally. But take a look at their recommended amounts. Everything is a 4, except for foreign language is a 3. We have debates about that in professional communities where everyone's like, you got to get that 4th. And I'm like, what if you replace it with a few more math classes? It's debatable. But their recommended units are pretty high. And I would say that you're not getting in without pretty close to a perfect record to a place with a 3% admission rate because you're competing against other people that have that transcript. Cal Lutheran, once again, which is better, rigor versus GPA, I just hand you what they tell us. This is what's in the common data set. Interpret that as you will. Okay. So, one of the questions, I guess one of the things that I discuss when I get a family in front of me, and I'll get a student in there that says, I want to go to Stanford. And they're a 10th grader or a ninth grader, and I have a feeling Heather will see this too. And they're like, what do I need to do to get into Stanford? And so in a case like that, we could set you up a pathway to Stanford, a place that has a 4% admission rate that you might not get into, and we could twist you into a pretzel to look good. But the path that I always recommend is the one on the left. Choose the college that matches your academic path instead of choosing an academic path that matches your college goals. We could twist you into that pretzel, make you take classes that are going to make you absolutely miserable because they're not of your interest and they're maybe, they're making it so you can't do anything else to try to get you into that 4% admission rate. Or you could do the things that make sense to you. And when you get to the second half of your junior year and you start thinking about what colleges make sense to you, we look at that record, we look at what you've done, the choices that you've made, and we say, based on the courses you're interested in, based on the level of rigor that you've chosen, I think that these could be really good matches for you. So this is a discussion that we get all the time. Which is the better pathway? And Heather, I'm curious, do you have any, as the counselor, as a person who's actually creating the 4-year plan, what is your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I mean, I really just try to encourage the learners to follow the path that they're interested in. Like I always tell them there's, a college for you, right? We're not trying to mold you into the college like you using Stanford as your example here, but we do have those that are very set on going to Stanford, and then I have to set them up on that thing. But I would say most of the time, by the time they come to the second semester of junior year, they are open to other schools, which is always nice.
I will say one thing that's interesting, and that is listen to your counselor. We've had several students that put themselves into the pretzel on purpose because they thought that more was better. They piled them on their parents. We've had situations where the parent was the one that piled them on, thinking this was the pathway. And we've had students actually fail classes because they were overloaded because all they can think of was Stanford, 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 Ivy League, Ivy League, Ivy League. And instead of listening to the counselor and putting together a pathway that made sense for the student, they actually removed their own chances by assuming that they had to overdo it. And you don't. If you do the things that make sense to you, you have actually a higher chance of getting into a place that might be even more selective. And so I'll leave you with that thought, and we'll head off into the sunset by reminding you that you can talk to your counselor, you can talk to me, come on and make a 4-year plan, or if you're further on down, a 3-year plan or a 2-year plan. And yeah, we've got some more things coming up. We have extracurriculars. We're going to be talking about that next. And then we're also going to be talking about testing. There is a tour. We'll put the link up after. There is a tour coming up to Pomona College, and we are always here to answer your questions. So if you are watching at home, I thank you for showing up. I'm going to stop our recording now, and we're going to start our Q&A.